Hello there, you amazing viewers and subscribers, and welcome to a brand new Doctor Who face-off video for today. So for this Doctor Who face-off, it is going to be Classic Who versus Modern Who. Now, the reason I'm doing this is kind of because I kind of want to get people's opinions on what do they prefer. Do they prefer the classic era of Doctor Who or the modern era of Doctor Who? So I'm going to explain for me where I kind of fit into this, like for this face-off, what I think of the both eras of between classic and modern, and generally just like that. And I'd like you to tell me in the comments below, what do you think of the classic and modern era? Which one do you think deserves to win this face-off? So I'm going to talk about what I think about from each season, from each era, and then of course, where I go. So, looking at classic Doctor Who and modern Doctor Who, I have to admit, I really think Doctor Who was really handled so great in the classic era than to some of the stuff we have in the modern era of the show. Because when the show returned back in 2005, yeah, it had something going for it with Christopher Eccleston coming, like being the Ninth Doctor with Billy Piper. And then, of course, we go into Series 2. Oh, my God. This is where I feel like Series 2 is where modern Doctor Who falls down a graduate hole. It does kind of like fall down. And then, of course, you do have some little peaks that move it up and then move it down, move it up, move it down. So, saying that is, from Series 2 onwards, they decided to go with the whole lovey-dovey stuff between the Doctor and a companion. And not just saying that, it's like with Rose, with Martha, with Amy a little bit, with River, with Clara, or of course with Yaz. It kind of falls down that category with the whole Doctor Who lovey-dovey stuff going on between 10 and Rose, or 10 and Martha, or 11 and Amy, or 11 with River, or 11 with Clara. Or, of course, we have 13 with Yaz. I have to admit, I don't really care for the whole lovey-dovey stuff. I do think it was handled better in the Whittaker era than it was with the Tennant era where it started. With the Matt Smith era, you can kind of have little hints and dabs about it, but the best thing is the 11th Doctor technically doesn't really act on it, because, again, this is an old man in a young man's body, so the 11th Doctor doesn't really act like that. And I really think that lovey-dovey stuff kind of ruins the modern era of the show. Not just that, I mean the scripts itself. Because at this point now, we are in 2023, and I really think the Cybermen need a rest, because I really think the Cybermen have been overused quite a lot, and they've run out of ideas what to do with the Cybermen. Hopefully, Russell T Davies' second era might make them more popular, where basically in the Moffat and Chibnall era, they're kind of like overused quite a lot. Same with the Daleks. People were saying the Daleks are quite overused, but the thing is, though, I really think because the Daleks have got to be in Doctor Who one per year because of the deal they have with Terry Nation's estate, the creator of the Daleks. So I think they have to be in one every year. And of course, I really think the Master's kind of gone a bit stale now. I really think the Master kind of needs a bit of that break, just that kind of break and stuff. Now, talking about Classic Who, yeah, Classic Who kind of handled Doctor Who so much better to me than the modern era. I mean, Classic Who, no lovey-dovey stuff. There was like nothing going on between the Doctor and companions. It's just literally the Doctor with an assistant going through time and space battling monsters. And even then, I really think that some of the monsters were really handled really well. Like the Daleks, they were handled so well in the classic era of Doctor Who. Yeah, sure. If I can say 10 best Dalek stories that are really great from classic Who, like Genesis of the Daleks, Remembrance of the Daleks, Resurrection of the Daleks, Revelation of the Daleks. Then, of course, we have Day of the Daleks, the Dalek Invasion of Earth, The Chase, Power of the Daleks, the Evil of the Daleks, and then, of course, I have to admit, one that has pretty much grown on me is Destiny of the Daleks. So we've had so many great stories for the Daleks on Classic Who. When you compare classic Doctor Who Dalek stories compared to the modern Who Dalek stories, yeah, they're so much better. Same with the Cybermen as well. I mean, the Cybermen handled so much better in Classic Who than there were in Modern Who, because in the 60s they did so many great stuff with them. Give them like a 5 minute kind of rest, like a 5 year rest from the end of 1968, 1969, and they were not seen until 1975. So they kind of had a like 5 to 6 year kind of rest for the Cybermen. And then above that one, you have an 8 year gap between Revenge of the Cybermen and Earthshock, and the Cybermen was so handled really well in Earthshock, the Five Doctors, and of course Attack of the Cybermen. Now, when I look at Silver Nemesis, I actually think Silver Nemesis isn't that kind of bad. It's good. I really think it's good. I think it's one of the third best story of season 25. I have to admit, because I really do enjoy Silver Nemesis. I really don't kind of care for the Greatest Show in the Galaxy. But we do have the Cybermen do have some great iconic stories, like The Invasion, Tomb of the Cybermen, the Moon Base, Earthshock, Attack of the Cybermen. You know, you've got so many great stories there. Same with the Master in Classic Who as well. The Master was handled so well with the Roger Delgado and Anthony Ainley incarnations. Yes, Anthony Ainley is kind of a bit like a panto villain, but in some stories he's actually pretty decent. I mean, Anthony Ainley, he is my all-time favourite incarnation of the Master. And I have to admit, for my all-time favourite incarnation of the Master, yes, I do think he's a kind of bit panto-rhymey in certain stories, but the rest of them are pretty good. I mean, go and check out the Logopolis. Go and check out Castrovalva. The Doctor's kind of story arc for Hartnell, where you kind of start off with this old grumpy old man, and he kind of mellows by the time he gets to Regeneration, where he's kind of grumpy and grotty and really popping in a place. Where the second Doctor basically is a step back from Hartnell was. He became more like a cunning clown. So he dressed a bit wearing too many baggy clothes. He tricked his villains, so making them think that he's actually quite harmless, where this is the most dangerous person in the universe. The third Doctor can actually go and kick your ass in a minute of seconds, just going after Sea Devils and, of course, the Master after a few sword fights. The fourth Doctor, the most popular incarnation of the Doctor, because, one, he has no living over stuff in his era. Two, he has some iconic stories. I mean, this is the Doctor with 41 stories of Doctor Who. 42 stories Doctor Who in his era of 7 years, and he is the longest running Doctor, and he has so many iconic stories in his era, which is why I prefer the Tom Baker era to the David Tennant era. I know some people say, oh, Tennant's the best Doctor, but when I kind of hear that, I'm like thinking to myself, he's not really the best now, is he? I mean, not compared to the greatest Doctor of them all, aka Mr. Tom Baker. If I was going to say who is the best modern Doctor from modern Doctor Who, it's definitely got to go to Peter Capaldi, because I really think Peter Capaldi is the best Doctor from modern Who to me. I have to admit that. I really think Tom Baker is the best Doctor from Classic Who, where Capaldi is the best Doctor from modern Doctor Who. And that's the one thing. And then, of course, when you go look at the two kind of youngest incarnations of the Doctor, which is basically Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, and Peter Davison, the 5th Doctor, I really think the 11th Doctor was handled so better than the 5th Doctor was in his era, because in the 5th Doctor kind of wants to play it safe, a bit like the 13th Doctor, because the 13th Doctor kind of wants to play it a bit safe, where a bit like the 5th, where the 11th Doctor is kind of more like in between the 4th and 2nd incarnation of the Doctor, because don't forget that the 11th Doctor, this is an old man in a young man's body. And this is the Doctor at his very last point in time and space. This is the Doctor in his last incarnation of a regeneration cycle, until he got the whole new regeneration cycle on Translator, and before we get thrown to us the whole Timeless Child story arc. But saying that, I mean, the two youngest Doctors, I have to admit, Peter Davison had the hardest challenge than Matt Smith did, I have to admit, because Peter Davison came in at the backbone of the Tom Baker era. And Tom Baker, as I say, is the most popular and iconic Doctor, where Matt Smith was just kind of coming in to the literally like to the backbone for David Tennant. But I really think his era is so much better than Tennant's era, I have to admit. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Tennant as the 14th incarnation of the Doctor. Now, Ncuti Gatwa, he is 29 years old. He's exactly the same age as Peter Davison, so it's nice to kind of see another young incarnation of the Doctor. I mean, I'm literally 27 in a few days, so it's kind of nice to have another young Doctor, and especially when I'm like coming up to 27 and he's 29, and when it comes to his season being broadcast, if it's in the May, then of course I'll be 28 when his era starts airing. So that's one good thing about having a younger Doctor in Modern Who. Same with Matt Smith. But then, of course, when you get to like Capaldi and Colin Baker, I really think the 12th Doctor was handled so much better with the dark side of the Doctor than Colin Baker was in his era. And then, of course, we have Sylvester McCoy, who is my second favourite incarnation of the Doctor, and Paul McGann in Classic Who. I really think the whole Doctor Who side of Classic Who was handled so much better than Modern Who. I mean, if I can tell you what I think was so great in Classic Who, then what we got in Modern Who. So in Classic Who, we have good unit stories, we have good Dalek stories, we've got good Cyberman stories. We have some kind of like season story arcs instead of series story arc, where like for Series 1 we had Bad Wolf, Series 2 we had Torchwood, Series 3 we had Saxon. For Modern Who, Series 4 we had the planets, Something on Your Back, The Missing Planets. Series 5, The Pandorica Opus. Series 6 is basically the Doctor's death. Series 7 is The Impossible Girl. Series 8 kind of story arc is Am I a Good Man? Series 9, it's The Hybrid, where Series 10, it's kind of like The Fault. That's the whole story arc. Series 11 has no story arc whatsoever. Series 12 is basically, the story arc for Series 12 is the whole Timeless Child story arc. And then Series 13, it just goes to the whole Flux story arc. And the one thing about Classic Who is we have only 2 seasons that kind of have 2 main story arcs in Doctor Who, where all the other seasons have separate stories. And that's the point of Doctor Who. It really doesn't need whole massive season story arcs like you do for Modern Who. Like, if I was going to say what is the 2 best Classic Who story arcs, it's got to be The Key to Time and, of course, Trial of the Time Lord, because they're the 2 with the whole story arcs. If I was going to think of a story arc for an episode, then, of course, you have the Daleks Master Plan, which is 12 parts long, and then it's all continuing to one story. Instead of it being, like, over domain, over the next story kind of goes on to something else, where in Modern Who, say, like, at the end, the Master comes back and he's killed some people, he's like ruining the Earth, or the Daleks are back, and then you kind of got the Doctor kind of like drawing onto that past, where in Classic Who you just kind of got the Doctor defeating the Daleks, let's go somewhere else, and then of course comes across Cybermen, defeats the Cybermen, and then just carries on coming across like that way, which is kind of brilliant in Classic Doctor Who, because in Classic Doctor Who it's just handled so better, where instead of having like little teasers for stories that's going to come into the big finale, you kind of have in Classic Who so many great stories. Literally, if I could say some of the best stories is Terror of the Autons, where you kind of got the Master coming in, stealing the nesting consciousness control unit from Leftover from Spearhead from space, and then making a whole new army of Autons. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But when you look at Classic Who, and I'm then thinking to myself about Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of Daleks, and I'm just literally just thinking, why is this here? Then, of course, we have the Lazarus Experiment, which is, my God, an absolutely not bouter. It is absolutely a drivel. It is an absolutely pile of crap, the Lazarus Experiment. And I'm sorry to say that, but it is an absolute pile of crap episode. Same with 42. And that's it. I have to admit, it's the same as 42. 42 ain't really that good. But then, of course, for the rest of the series, it's kind of good. But for me, I'm going to have to say Classic Who wins this face-off for me, because I absolutely love Classic Who for the storytelling, for the way it is for each season. Yes, 2 seasons do have story arcs like The Key to Time and Trial of the Time Lords, which are really quite interesting, with the Doctor being put on trial by the Time Lords. Yet again, a bit like Trial of the Time, bit like the War Games, really, where you kind of got the Doctor being put on trial in part 10, because, why not? Where you basically got episodes 1 to 9 of the War Games with the Doctor basically running around with the War Chief, the Warlords, going, oh my word, we got to escape, get captured, escape, get captured, call help for the Time Lords, try to escape, they get captured by the Time Lords, and then of course, Jamie and Zoe's kind of memories of the Doctor get wiped, and the second Doctor is forced to regenerate into his 3rd incarnation. So yeah, Classic Who handled that so much better than Imagine that in Modern Who, where you just got the Doctor being forced by Time Lords, and then it just wouldn't be the same, would it? Not like it was in Classic Who. Which is one of the reasons why I really think Classic Doctor Who handles the Time Lords so better than Modern Who as well. So, yeah, you know what? For this face-off, Classic Doctor Who wins for me. Let me know in the comments what wins for you. Is it Modern Who? Is it Classic Who? Let me know. Please do like, subscribe, and share. And join me for more awesome Doctor Who content. Thank you for watching and have a cracking day.